Yeah, I don't understand. Elon is a mystery, man. How does he have time to do all this tweeting? That's the most obvious.
Dude, he's a liar.
That's the most obvious question.
I think he's lying, just like he's lying about being a gamer. I don't think it's real.
I heard that was a lie.
Yeah, I don't think it's real. I think he's a lot like a habitual liar.
What?
Like
so you think so what's he lying about? He's not the one doing the tweeting?
I think maybe his Neuralink is doing this. I think he's got a Neuralink. But I mean, look, he's a smart dude. I just don't think he's doing all these things. I think he's outsourced a lot of it to AI. Or, I don't think he's tweeting all that much. That to me is insane. It doesn't make sense. You're doing Doge. You're that much of a video gamer. You're doing your companies, SpaceX, Neuralink. I just don't buy. I don't buy it.
Artificially inseminating all these women.
Yeah. That's a whole other thing.
I heard he's not fucking half of them. I heard. Is that true?
That's what I hear.
Yeah,
because he's a eugenicist.
Right. I heard it was like I heard somebody call him a rationalist, where it's like his idea is he wants to reproduce with like women who have higher cognitive abilities, right? And he wants to. So it's basically like eugenics.
It's eugenics.
Yeah,
rationalist is just a nice way of saying eugenicist.
And he like doesn't get past first base with half these women.
I don't doubt it.
And he's just artificially inseminating.
I don't doubt it, dude. So like, it's weird because going back, I was thinking about Elon. Like when did I start even thinking about this guy? And I remember I was actually in Florida. I was walking our son in his stroller. So this must have been like 7 years ago, and I was reading about Neuralink. That brought me to like his Mars stuff. And I was thinking about what kind of fights am I going to have in the future with my kids? Because it's going to be different, right?
Yeah.
Like the fights I have with my parents about like the music I listen to, stuff like that, or, just not coming home. I'm like, what am I going to fight about with my kid? I'm like, it's going to be him wanting to be immortal through Neuralinks, because the transhumanist by then will like Ray Kurzweil, you just upload your consciousness, Timmy down the street is doing it, or going to Mars, And I was like, these are really interesting things that like I don't think it's going to be that far in the future where people are going to have some kind of designer immortality, I'm putting in quotes, where you can have like your digital avatar and people will consider it as much as a real you as, as you hear you and me. So I was like really not into that. And like, I think it was probably 2020, I wrote my first thing about his Neuralink trial, where he's talking about like the pigs. And he's lost a lot of pigs. He's got the I think he calls it monkey Disneyland. Have you looked about that? No. I think he calls it that. It's either he calls it that or like Neuralink calls it that. But it's where some of their like their brains explode. It's wild stuff. So like that kind of started me thinking about how I do not trust what this guy's doing, because it's tough, because I can understand the positives, the short-term positives. It's beautiful that you want to fix someone who's paraplegic, right? If they want to walk again, like that's amazing. You want to give someone sight again who's blind. If you want to give someone hearing again who's deaf, how do you argue against that? It's like, that's amazing. But at a certain point, I think it's going to be like you're kind of left out of society if you don't have those. Just like these smartphones today. Like if you're not participating in the modern world, you're not having a phone like this, right?
What about like imagine being the only one who can't telepathically communicate.
Right. That's I
it's like
literally
being
think
the only one without a smartphone today.
Yeah, it sounds great. But that's the network they're building. So
what? Did you say something? Me? I thought you said something. I'm hearing shit.
It was his Neuralink.
Yeah.
But like, so like I was thinking about that stuff, and then I just started watching him closely because it was hard. Like I enjoyed him buying Twitter. Years ago. I was like, right.
It was
that's
optimistic.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's great. Twitter was horrible. It had a lot of issues. I appreciated his innovation. I was fascinated by a lot of it. And then when I started really thinking he was a liar was when I realized that it sounds like he lied about his firstborn child dying in his arms, and his wife at the time, she said that that's not true. And he only said that, unless he said it somewhere else. First time I saw him say it was when he said it when he was trying to convince people why he didn't want Alex Jones back on Twitter. Because he at the time believed that Alex Jones hurt kids. Not really like him hurting kids, but like what he had done, what he had said was like rejection of the reality of of the Sandy Hook that Elon believed in, right? He believed that like these kids were hurt, and now Alex didn't believe it. So he said and he thinks that way because his child died in his arms, but his wife said at the time, I think that's his first wife, said that didn't happen at all. So, I'm like, if you're willing to lie about that, look, I don't know. Right. I'm just saying that this changed my perspective on listening to anything he says. And like, if you're willing to, if this is true, if you're willing to lie about your child dying in your arms, then I will be skeptical of everything you say.
Sure.
Just like how I'm skeptical of Zuckerberg and all these other people who are clearly lying as well. So like, I think this whole rebrand into being like MAGA and dark MAGA, it's so stupid, but like it's them getting closer to the power that will allows them to create the technocracy that I think they want, you know, and it's not, I don't think it's too conspiratorial to think that that's what they want. Cause they see themselves as like gods. You know, they see themselves as they're better than everyone. Zuckerberg was happy to censor all of us, during COVID.
Yeah.
Elon has had a lot of changes of heart, and that's possible. You can have a change of heart, you know. I just don't buy it with these people. You know, I think this idea of efficiency is great. You know, Doge I think is great. I love the idea of making the government much smaller because it's a huge problem. But what they're going to install after that is probably going to be AI, because the future technocracy is probably not going to be quote unquote experts. Like, it probably won't be. Elon and them will be like pulling the levers, but they're probably going to install their AI, because that will be their opinion of an objective expert, right? Although it's not objective, right? Because it's made by subjective people. So, you know, that's the thing I'm worried about. And you know, with Elon buying Twitter, although I thought it was great, it's clear to me that he's monopolized the collective consciousness. And so he's taking everything off Twitter to feed into Grok, to feed into Optimus, to make his spaceship, you know, that she says is going to fly to Mars using AI. So I think that's what a lot of these people are doing. Like, they're data harvesting our thoughts. They're monopolizing our brains. That's like that is the new war. It's on like our privacy and our thoughts. And like, Meta has been working on things that can actually read your brain, like can translate your brain wavelengths into images and words. So like, that's the future, is it's inescapable. They're going to want inside of your brain. So they know a bunch of things, how to sell you to advertisers, how to make money, you know, on you like that, but also how to prevent crime. Cause they're going to be like, well, this person's having bad thoughts, so we need to watch them more closely. Like what they're doing in the UK. Just yesterday, I saw the article. Like they're doing allegedly with the IDF right now using Lavender, that AI model, which is like the AI is basically allowed to decide who may or may not be a terrorist. And allegedly, like there's articles about it. So like the IDF has said it doesn't do this. So take it with a grain of salt. I have a feeling it's probably happening, because it sounds like a lot of the stuff that Clearview AI would do, or Palantir, where it's harvesting a lot of data. Is this Lavender? Dude, this is terrifying because it has a huge error rate. Allegedly.
Lavender AI programmer allegedly used by the Israeli military to identify potential Hamas militants in Gaza. Wow.
This can't be good.
Identified over 37,000 people in Gaza as potential targets for military strikes. The program allegedly used machine learning to assist scores to individuals based on factors such as association with suspected militants and frequent changes in phone numbers. Wow, dude, that's crazy.
Dude, this is not good. Like,
no.
So, you know, it doesn't matter how you feel about that war. Like, no one should have this ability. I think Thiel is one of the most like nefarious actors.
Really?
And he's like deeply embedded in the right, because he's one of Trump's biggest donors.
Have you seen what he's been doing with Silicon Valley? And
he's a vampire.
And he's behind this huge new effort to basically map Christianity onto everything that's happening in Silicon Valley, and he's like he's part of this church, and they're doing these huge conferences.
I haven't seen that. I know he claims to be Christian. He's a strange guy. I think
he's a gay really Christian billionaire,
married gay Christian. He is a transhumanist vampaire, though. We'll get to that in a minute. They all are, but like he says things I think he's an extremely smart dude. Yeah. Like, and he's been around for a minute. He unfortunately helped build the surveillance state post 9/11 with Palantir and all these things. And, you know, I'm really against the surveillance state. I really think that is super dystopian. And he's made, I'm sure, billions of dollars off war, you know, on all the wars, plus the surveillance state here and around the world. And he's part of Facebook. You know, he helped create Facebook. Yeah. He funded Facebook. Yeah. So, and Palantir was funded by Incutech, which is a CIA arm. Oh, Incutel, right? That's a venture capitalist from the CIA. So like all that stuff is very alarming to me, and like they don't like being questioned about that. But I didn't know about the Christian mapping thing. But I've seen him talk about religion.
You can find the article, Steve. Just type in Christianity in Silicon Valley, and there'll be a ton of fucking articles. It's like this new phenomenon that's happening, and like, you know, in the past, Silicon Valley has been like the opposite of a religious place.
Oh yeah,
you know?
11 years ago, Elon is saying he's with AI summoning the demon, but recently he says it's a digital god. So they've rebranded even that. Yeah, I haven't seen this, but like
Here's just one article. Yeah, there's been a lot of people writing about this lately.
Interesting. Freaking paywalls.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
Yeah, this is the one that I read right here.
Interesting.
Christianity was borderline illegal in Silicon Valley, and now it's the new religion. And what I think it has something to do with national security. I don't know exactly. I don't think it's ideology. I think it's some sort of 4D chess that these guys are playing. These leaders of these military industrial complex companies.
Yeah.
That are really pushing Christianity to all the people that work inside Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
And I think it has. I mean, it's speculation, obviously, right? Like, no, we don't know, but like, who knows how these people think? But what if they think that, look at all these other countries that, they, in the Middle East, for just one example, like, you have all these people that ascribe to a certain religious worldview, right? You have religious extremists that are willing to go as far as strapping a bomb to their chest and detonate it in a fucking public place.
Yep.
And here it's the opposite of that. You have this crazy diverse array. There's not like one solid foundational worldview people have in America. Right. So it might be some sort of thing that they're trying to do to bolster America or make America stronger.
Yeah, like I honestly have a hard time believing anything he says, although he does say things I agree with. Like I think he also understands that the universities are like ideological death camps. I taught in them. I saw it's crazy what they're doing to kids' minds. He says a lot of things that I think are neat, but like sometimes when I see this stuff, I'm like, I think it's, this is just my theory. It's their way of trying to get the people on their side that they need, right? Because for so long, a lot of these guys were part of the so-called left. It's left and right really doesn't even mean anything anymore because Trump's not even really right, right-leaning, although he appears to be to the people on the left. But like, they were darlings of the left for so long. Everyone loved Elon. I mean, you go back 10 years and look at Elon on Colbert. They're, we love you so much. We love. They're clapping for Teslas. Those same people are probably keying those Teslas today, right? Yeah. Or selling their own Teslas. But I think a lot of this stuff is like, so like something I hear a lot when I criticize someone like Elon or Thiel, because Rumble and then X, and they'll say like, oh, well, look what they're doing for freedom of speech. I think that's amazing. I agree. X is a lot better. It's still got a lot of problems, and Rumble's pretty cool. But like, my opinion is they're doing this to kind of endear themselves to the dissident voices. So now you're not like what we're saying earlier with like independent media. A lot of these voices I'm seeing be reluctant to question these people now at all. Like, you don't hear much about a lot of like negative stuff, like legitimate like concerns about these people from the right or the so-called dissident voices. And I think that's like the most important conversation.
There's
right
a
now.
Few people, but very few.
You'll hear like Whitney Webb.
Kyle Kalinski's been going hard.
Oh, has he? Someone I never listened to. But
really?
Do you think it's like
he's
legitimate?
a guy who came out of Rogan. I mean, he was literally created by Rogan.
Do you think he has like legitimate concerns about Elon, or does he just be like?
No, I mean, he's very critical of Rogan and Trump and Elon and all these people and calling out like all the. I think some of it is pretty reasonable, but I think a lot of it is like just super toxic and biased and just
that's what's so hard.
He's a little bit out of control
because I'll see the left hate a lot of these people for the wrong reasons. Like it's like a lot of like knee-jerk reactions to things that I think kind of water down the real problems. And then the right just refuses to see the problems at all, right? Because they're so happy that they won, with the help of these people, for sure. Because Thiel's one of Trump's biggest donors since 2015ish.
And Alex Karp donated millions of dollars to Kamala. How funny is that?
I know. That's why these people have no moral center. No, their only path and their only goal in life is power over us and money. Right? Like they make money off these crises, right? Like COVID, a lot of people made money off that. A lot of the social media companies made money off that. Well, also destroyed people's lives, right? Small businesses went out. Like in New York, we lost thousands of small businesses, but these major companies were fine. So like you see the things that they're creating. It's like the military industrial complex. What Palantir does, what Anduril, I can't even say Anduril. Like that's a weird company. Clearview AI is one of the scary ones to me with the facial recognition app, because it's like it's inescapable, right? That's why the only thing I don't know what to do other than like try to have ethics from the bottom up, because these companies are not going to be like, well, we're not going to use it for bad reasons, but the idea of what's bad is different every day in politics. Something that was acceptable last year is now not acceptable. They're always moving the goalposts. And these people are very open about how this world is going to just crush humanity, but they say, someone like Mark Andreessen would say it's a Did you read his Techno-Optimist manifesto? It's like the opposite of the Unabomber's manifesto. Oh. You know, it's a very joyous outlook, which is like, look, I'm very against the violence with the Unabomber, but that manifesto says a lot of things that are really interesting in terms of like universities and politics. Like he saw a lot of problems back then.
Wasn't he MK Ultra?
They say.
He was in a Harvard study, right?
They say, yeah. That's crazy, right?
Google that.
I think it was when he was a kid or something,
Type in Ted Kaczynski Harvard experiments.
Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah. What was I gonna say to you?
But I was saying Techno-Optimist like manifesto, and just like the way like they're building this world where we're gonna have machines and it's gonna be really, really great with no problems.
Right. I was gonna say, Elon is the thing. A thing about Elon is like, you know his famous story about how in 2000 and I think it was maybe 2000 is when, I think it was maybe December of 2000 or 2008, maybe it was 2008, December of 2008. He told this story about how like they needed to make payroll or whatever. And like his accountants came to him and said, you got to bankrupt either Tesla or SpaceX. Or else we're not going to be able to, we're going to lose both.
Right.
And he was like, I'd rather die than lose one of those companies. Right. He's like, we'll make it happen.
I mean, he got a lot of money from the military.
And then he ended up, and then there's this story that this guy, John Kiriakou, the CIA agent, tells how in like 2 months later, he was at this big dinner and Elon was there at this like government dinner with a bunch of fucking CIA and NSA people.
That makes sense.
So if you're fucking, it doesn't seem right. Right. Yep. If you're going through that, trying to fucking make your company survive, your $1 billion company survive, what are you doing at some Washington dinner with a bunch of CIA and NSA people?
You're making bank.
Right.
You're making bank. I mean, he is helping sustain the surveillance state right now with Starlink. You know, they've got all these contracts with using Starlink satellites to, you know, put up all the Lockheed Martin type satellites, maybe his own, who knows. So there's a lot of things he just can't talk about because he probably signed a ton of NDAs. You know, that's why I always find it weird when he talks about aliens. It always seems so forced.
And the moon.
Yeah.
We definitely went to the moon.
Yeah. Okay, dude. Look, something's up there. It might be like something that looks like the moon, but I don't know if it's what we've been told it is. But like, everything that these people, him, Thiel, like the whole PayPal like mafia type of crowd is very strange to me. And now they're completely infiltrated the government. Like they've been a part of all the administrations to some degree, but now it's like really like it's Trump, and now they're like outwardly like we're building this dystopia. I mean, they think it's a utopia, but like, you know, so they're creating this false god. They're creating like an omniscient presence with the spy satellites, with the surveillance state. So like those are the things that really worry me. The whistleblower from Facebook. Did you see any of this from yesterday? No. They had this crazy whistleblower about Facebook before the Senate, and she was talking about how Facebook secretly watches, like they can target specific age groups. And in particular, she was saying Facebook was looking at 17 to 18-year-old girls, and if they delete a selfie, it might mean they're a little depressed. And they send that data to advertisers because they believe that when you're sad, you're more willing to buy something.
Really?
Yeah. And like she had this whole thing about it. Like it's insane, you know, and like they're just harvesting all the data.
This was just yesterday?
A day or two ago, yeah. Yep.
Wow.
She's saying, and she's, you know, who knows? I feel like everyone lies when they're testifying, but she's saying that he, you know, Zuckerberg was lying under oath about all that years ago because they were worried about this back in 2018.
Right.
How they target people either individually to censor them or like large groups of people to see if they can sell to advertisers.
Right.
So that's just like one type of group, you know, the young teenagers, you know, women who seem depressed, and they're like, well, they might need this new handbag. We're going to send this information to this so-and-so, and then they're going to get this ad now. And they're monitoring it that closely.
That's crazy, dude.
That's dark, dude.
That is dark.
That is very, very dark world. I don't want my kids to have social media.
No, me neither. I don't want my kid to have a smartphone.
Yeah, no, for sure. I'm going to give my kid like a telephone booth.
A telephone booth?
Yeah. Like, you're Superman now. I just don't trust it. I think it's very harmful.
I think there's like this kind of like small movement of tech companies trying to like dumb down technology to make it more primitive. Like there's this company that I have this thing right here. This thing is called a daylight computer. It's basically like a computer / iPad.
Yeah.
And there's no blue light in it at all.
I like that.
So like the blue light like really fucks up the chemicals in your brain when you do it, and it's super addictive. It's like a dopamine slot machine, like when you're staring at a phone. And this thing has none of it. It's only like the red amber light. And it's like really good for reading. So like if I sit up at night and I like will read a PDF or read a Kindle book on this thing, I'm asleep within 30 minutes.
Oh, that's awesome.
I can't sit up and read, like with a Kindle or with a phone, you can sit up for hours and scroll through stuff. And next thing you know, it's 1 in the morning.
I've been doing this. The red light. Yeah. It's not as good, but it helps.
No, it definitely helps.
Addicted, and I'm reading like a crazy person, all this stuff. And it definitely has helped. But like I prefer, that's awesome.
Yeah, dude, this thing's incredible. And there's also companies that are selling like phones that are like super dumbed down with like no connection and like, you know, the only calls and texts.
I just keep telling my wife we're gonna be Amish. I'm slowly removing every piece of technology from my house until she wakes up and we're Amish. Like, welcome back to the past. Like I grew up on a farm, dude, without like anything. I mean, we had things, but I didn't have a computer growing up. Yeah. We had a TV at a certain point, but that TV only had a few channels. So I realize I have like weird Luddite capabilities like in me already, just from like not having air conditioning, not having internet, and like having to have special permission to like handwrite my essays to hand into school because they're like, oh, poor Shane doesn't have a computer to pronounce. So like my chicken scratch is now being handed in, and like I learned about computers way later than everyone else. Like obviously, you know, I go to friends' houses and be like, oh wow, it's cool, I can use Napster here or something. Yeah. I'm reading magazines and stuff, so I know what's going on. I wasn't completely under a rock, but pretty under a rock. But like I just see there's so many positives come out of this stuff, but I think the negative stuff outweighs the positives, especially when you're seeing kids who are raised in that world. And like, I think it's good that they're trying to dumb down technology and get it back to its core. But there's so many kids who are trapped in like this fake their digital life means more to them than their real life. Which is why I think we have more nihilism today and people with meaninglessness. And there's like, you know, violence is a human, it's always been here. But there just seems to be like a different type of recklessness and nihilism today. Yeah. With kids, like they're, you know, killing themselves by accident making selfies. Yeah, it's all for the digital, you know, for the likes and stuff. And then knowing that those companies like Facebook, what I was just telling you, they take advantage of that. So they're like steering you, which is then what you were saying, MK Ultra, but we're MK Ultraing ourselves. Yeah, but like, is it futile to try to fight it, or is this just the way we go? Because like fundamentally, like with human beings. We are human beings because of technology. Yeah. Like if it wasn't for fire, we wouldn't look the way we look today. Right. No, you know what I mean? I don't want to be anti-tech because I love that we get to do this. Yeah. This is amazing. I got to fly here. You know, if I drove here, it would be 24 hours. It'd be crazy. You know, right. This is amazing. I'm not anti-tech. And I think that's the Luddites kind of get a bad rap because they weren't anti-tech either. They were anti like the tyranny of mass autonomy. So like they were using the technology of the day in 1810 or 1811, like the weavers, you know, to make textiles. But when factories were being built and being filled with those machines and displacing those people's jobs is when they started attacking the machinery. So they weren't technically anti-tech, you know, and I feel like, although I'm against the violence aspect, I'm against being, you know, automated out of work, and that's going to happen across the world. So it's inevitable. It is futile. I think I just think it's going to come down to like society having more ethics built into it, but it's going to be on an individual level because the companies that are doing it, like Facebook, like Google, like all these places, their ethics aren't a thing. You know, they're working directly, like Zuckerberg. They're saying in that whistleblower thing the other day, he's working directly with China to build a censorship regime, and they're censoring people.
Zuckerberg is?
Yeah. For years, they called it a censorship regime, and they called the person who was it? The chief editor. It's like so Orwellian. So this person would oversee all these things. If anything got a certain amount of likes, the chief editor would come to his desk and be like, "Okay, we got to deboost this or whatever, or just nuke it out of into oblivion." And the Chinese government, through these, you know, leaks that they're getting with the emails and stuff. They would say like, "Hey, this is someone on American soil right now, but he's saying stuff we don't like here in China, so you gotta like get rid of that account," and they would do it. So like they have no ethics. And I think like Zuckerberg's a complete fraud. You know, when he has this rebrand lately, and it's like, I'm pro-Trump and I have a fro now.
So unnatural with the chain.
I understand. Like, yeah, he looks like Little Dicky, you know? Like, I don't buy a thing this guy says at all.
I just like to read the comments of his interview with Rogan. It's so bad.
I was cringing for him. I was like, when Rogan asked him about the bow and arrow, he's like, you know, Rogan knows about his bows and arrows.
Oh yeah, I saw that clip.
And Zuckerberg's like, he's like, you can see him malfunctioning.
Oh, it's old.
Sparks are flying.
It's definitely old.
It's got a sharp point at the top. But like, it's funny because people buy into it, because when it comes to politics, you know, lately, everyone's so like, they want to be liked so bad by the people they think they hate. Like when it comes to like a rich, like wealthy, famous person, the right, who seems to be so against it lately, you know, the second Elon or Zuckerberg does a rebrand, they're like, we love him, they share great memes, and he like surfs and wears American flags. Right. But like, Zuckerberg is a straight up liar.
That's not surfing. He's doing that
whatever he's doing.
Fucking electronic foil board like a dork.
Stupid. That video is ridiculous. But
only something a billionaire would think was cool.
Right. So I don't know. These people have no ethics. Yeah. And seeing allegedly now that Zuckerberg's working so closely with like the Chinese government, which is in direct opposition to our government. Yeah. It's like, okay, we can't trust these people, and he's probably lied under oath. And I think that kind of extends to all these guys who are running the government currently.
What do you think happens with this whole Elon Trump thing and this whole Doge thing? How do you think this all plays out?
I don't know. So like thinking back to history, I think of I think his name was Frederick Taylor, Taylorism, they called it, or scientific management. It was all about efficiency. It was during the second industrial revolution, where he's like, we need to make factories way more efficient. All right, that's awesome. Efficiency is great. But it turned, you know, there's lots of negative consequences to it. Yeah. Like workers were suffering. It was horrible. And that's why we would eventually get the muckrakers and stuff who saw how these environments were really bad and anti-human, and that they started to view people as just replaceable parts, right? And then allegedly, someone like Lenin and Stalin and Mao, they were impressed by Taylorism. And that's how informed a lot of their Marxist views on how to run a very centralized state that they claim is efficient. I'm not saying that's where we're going, but that feels like there's a lot of people with a lot of money trying to consolidate power into one place. And that will have total control over us, whether it's a technocracy, whether it's just like invisible technocracy that's happening right now. I'm worried about it, because when you have experts in charge, like I said in the beginning, how do you define an expert? Mao thought he was an expert and all his people were experts as they industrialized China. But the Great Leap Forward was catastrophic. They had one of the worst famines in the world because of experts saying many things. But one of them was like, we should just kill the sparrows because the sparrows remind me of freedom in America. But then the sparrows were the ones that ate the bugs in the crops, and the bugs not being there. The swallows not being, the sparrows not being there, the bugs were there. The bugs ate the crops, killed the crops. But that's just one aspect of like the Four Pests campaign that came out of the engineers and the scientists and experts of Mao. So it's like, that's like the sick, bad version of Taylorism married to communism. Yeah. And it feels like we're heading towards that, because, and when I talk about like dissidents now being reluctant to criticize this administration, a lot of those dissidents believed in small government as I do. Like, I want a really small government. I'm not an anarchist, man, not yet. After a bad day, it's tax day, so I do feel like an anarchist.
It is
today.
Tax day.
I do feel like one today, but you know, they're going. So these dissidents who were so vocal about small government now are very pro Elon. And Elon is literally consolidating everything down. Just look at the X. That's his everything app. That's consolidating banking, your whole life down into an app. Yeah, which is antithetical to
Didn't
this
he say
idea.
he wanted a Model X off of that Chinese company?
I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, he loves China. They're good to him.
Right.
Just as good as our military is to him. You know, he makes a lot of money off all these places. So with Doge, I think it's great. But like, if they, so like where I live in West Virginia, we're like an hour and a half outside of DC. I talk to a lot of these people who are getting fired because of Doge.
Oh, yeah.
Because they're like commuters, right? And a lot of them are like these Christians, churchgoers, Trump voters. And like, we didn't expect it to be like this. And I have a hard time being sympathetic because I really hate the government. And I really hate this overly, this ballooned government, this wasteland. Like I love Doge cutting all this stuff. But it dawned on me talking to this one guy when he's getting those emails about like, what are the 5 things you did this week? I'm like, who's reading those emails? And it's like, they're not hiring new people to just read the emails. It's going through Grok or some AI. And then I'll get like that's a leftist talking point. I think it's a fair talking point to make. Like, I don't like the AI overlords running everything. And, so I'd see that as the future is like, they're going to slowly get rid of humans, implement AI as this digital god, as Elon calls it. And then they're probably going to fight over which AI has control. Elon's pretty close, so he's there. But Thiel works with Altman, with Andrew Will has they work with OpenAI to make their ghost drones and all that stuff. Yeah. So there'll be a war over who's in charge. So maybe that's a good thing for us. But yeah, I don't know. It seems like we're monopolizing it all.
I remember when that story first came out about the workers having to email what they got done that week or whatever. And like I was arguing, I told my dad about it and he's like, no, you're fucking wrong. Fox News said that it was only remote workers that have to do it. And at the time, my dad was at the VA because he got pneumonia and he goes to the VA whenever he has, to go to the hospital. Yeah. And I'm like, oh yeah. I'm like, well, let's ask your nurses. I'm like, ask your nurses if they got the email. And he did. And they're like, yeah, we got the email. Everyone got all the fucking nurses at the VA.
Dude, it's crazy. And it just fed right into AI. It's like, I know a lot of people lost their jobs recently and now they're up against AI in another way because all these places are now using AI to review resumes. And if like if your thing for whatever reason doesn't check all the AI things and there's not a human looking at it, you're done. Like, how do you fight? So you're losing your job to AI and now you're not able to get a job because of AI. And these people are very open about it. Altman, Ellis and all these people are being like, yeah, that's the future. That's why they want UBI. That's why they have these private cities. They think it'll be a beautiful future. Like Elon says, where you can have a robot babysitter. You can have your car drive you around while you play video games. But that's kind of what Yuval Harari said about the useful idiots that refuse that society, that total digital society, that you'll just drug them and give them video games to be complacent, which is why I'm like, oh, we're there. We're pretty close. I want people to like just reject it. You don't have to like be anti all this stuff because it's amazing. It's fun. But like you have to have everything in moderation. You have to learn to like, our kids are inheriting this really dark dystopian world. I think it's pretty nightmarish, but throughout history, you can always say that it's always been nightmarish. But right now it's like, what makes it different is that it's literally a war in your brain. Yeah. Like they are literally looking to get in your brain. And when you put all these things together, Palantir, Clearview, the meta thing with the brain waves, Lavender, that's like Skynet. Yeah. At a certain point, that is going to be Skynet. And like I said that recently on some show, I forget, and like I got pushback from Tim and some other guests. They're like, it won't be like that. I'm like, Elon literally just compared it to Skynet on Rogan. Like he literally just said he watched Terminator and he's like, oh, we're almost there. I'm like, he's the guy making this stuff. Yeah. So like I'm basing it on my own research, but I'm also listening to these guys talk about it every day.
It's interesting. Yeah, because Rogan seems to be one of the guys that's super optimistic about it. I mean, he's been talking about the Neuralink and he's like obsessed with this idea of nonverbal communication.
I'm not into it.
With like, being able to see people or basically transmit thoughts back and forth and be able to understand people's intentions like immediately.
Not good.
He seems to be a really big fan of it or really interested in this idea.
Yeah. He asked Mark Andreessen when he was on recently, like, how long till we get the AI government? I get it. He's in that world. He's in Austin. A lot of these companies are there. He's talking to these people. He's seeing a lot of the positive aspects. Like Tim Pool recently interviewed, I think, David Sachs, one of the AI like czar. And, Tim was starting an interview with like, talking about more like the consequences of AI. And Sachs was just like, I'm tired of talking about negative consequences. Yeah. I'm like, I'm sorry. There's a lot to talk about when it comes to it. We're allowed to have concerns over these things, especially when you all go around saying we're going to be out of jobs. Yeah. Like there's beauty coming out of it. Like, for forever, I've refused to use any AI.
Yeah.
I've never touched it until very recently. I've been asking Grok questions just to see, because I feel like I've been criticizing. It's like when people criticize a movie they've never seen, and I'll be like, I gotta use it, just see what it's like, and it's fascinating.
Yeah.
Because I'll go back and use Google for the same questions, and they suck.
Yeah.
Like Grok is way better.
Is it really?
It's from so far, I can ask it certain questions about history, and it gives me a way more in-depth look. Obviously I can go read a book or go get a book on Google Books or buy a book and, listen to something. There's that route. But just in terms of the AI answers on Google and the AI answers on Grok,
really?
So far Grok is better. I'm like, I understand how this is awesome.
Yeah, but what happens when you start asking Grok and Google different questions about history and they both give you completely different answers?
Right. Grok's like, it's Mossad.
Who was the villain in World War II? Google says Hitler. Grok says it was Winston Churchill.
Because now the AI is going to have its own post-reality, and they're going to be competing.
Right.
On who programmed, just like when
well, that's the way. That's how you get power, is you fucking split the population up.
Yeah, and that's where we're at. We're so fractured now.
Yeah,
you can have anything you want, any reality you want. That's kind of go back to how I was saying about I needed religion in my life because I was spinning out of control, and like I wanted my kids to have some sort of moral center. Yeah, because I was like, look, I'm a very flawed person and I know nothing because I'm just a little human being, but I need to attach myself to something ancient but also modern, which is a weird thing for me to think, after years of not taking it seriously.
Yeah,
but a lot of the things I see when I read the Bible, I see like that evil is just, it's infinite. Like it's always here. It's the same thing. We're always up against the same sort of thing. It's always a war for you. It's just different ways of doing it. Yeah. So like that's for me where I'm coming from at it now, because I needed like some sort of shield against the evil. Because I think it's just straight up evil. I think a lot of this stuff is very anti-human.
Are you on every podcast that you do with Tim, or like how does that schedule work?
Yeah, I do. I typically do his night show.
Oh, by the way, we're back from our pee break.
Sweet. Yeah. Oh, and it was also a homicide prediction project, I think is the name of that crazy thing in the UK. So like trying to predict if you're going to become a murderer. Earlier. Yeah. Is that going to become a murderer? We should, harvest all his data.
Homicide prediction.
Like what if you're a true crime writer? I guess the AI would be like, well, he's just writing about it. But that'd be a good cover.
I think about that all the time because we Google some of the most fucked up shit for the show. And I'm like,
same,
God,
dude.
I hope the FBI is not watching.
Oh, they definitely are.
They have to be watching us.
They definitely are. But yeah, I do usually Monday nights I do IRL with him, and then Inverted World is through him. So my studio is like right next to his studio out in West Virginia. It's crazy.
Is it all like one big building?
He's got one big building with like his skating and stuff, but my like coffin-sized studio is inside of like a haunted house. I'm in like a really old, crazy looking house from like the 1800s.
Dude, the first time I saw him skateboarding, I thought it was fake. Because
People say it's AI.
I've never seen him, like I had never seen him outside of like, this.
Yeah, well, Tim doesn't have legs. Those are bionic legs.
Right, that's what I thought.
Everyone
right?
should know
of course.
that. Yeah.
Why would he have legs? And then when I saw him fucking absolutely ripping on a skateboard, I'm like, there's no fucking way this is real.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy to see it in real life, because like he's down there skating before IRL, and he's got the giant skate park now, in that warehouse, and so him and his skater friends are just hitting those things. He's got this one ridiculous like vertical. Yeah, I don't know what you call it. Like I don't know much about skating, but it's insane. Yeah. It's like a death trap. Like I don't know why he even did that. It's ridiculous, but people try to hit it because you go to the top. Yeah, fall down. I think someone like really hurt themselves. They're fine now.
Really,
but it's insane. But yeah, they're down there like all the time. He's got a half pipe outside. Yeah, and I can just look out my window in my haunted house.
That Russian money really hit.
Yeah,
the right way.
Tenet was great. Yeah, dude, that story's crazy. I was because I did that was for the Culture War show, right? And that's so that was Tim's. I guess that was on his. He's got so many channels I can't keep up, but like one of his channels on YouTube, we had the Culture War, and so that was like pre-Tenet. Before they came in, and like,
what was the story with what was the whole story? Like, how did this all start?
Depends who you ask. Right. The Culture War started, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago, and like I don't even know if these episodes are still on anymore. But the first one I did was probably episode like 4, and it was me, Luke Rukowski, Tim, and Alex Jones. I think we were in Austin or something. It was a blast. It was more like casual than IRL is like you're sitting around a table and we're just like the news.
Right.
Culture War, we just sit around and talk, about the certain themes or whatever. At a certain point, he licensed Culture War to Tenet, right? And that was like Lauren Chen and them. I don't know these people like that.
He licensed it to Tenet.
So like it was still through his channel, I think. Like he'd be better talking about this, but like,
and where did Tenet come from?
I don't know. But all of a sudden they came out of nowhere.
People were just like, yo, we want to license your shit for $1 million.
Yeah. So like they say it was Russians. giving money to like Lauren and them, I guess, right? I personally think it was the CIA. I
really
legit. If you like look back at all the things the CIA has hijacked over the years to discredit, right? Because a lot of these people were like, in my opinion, even though I'm not fans of them, like I'm not really a Dave Rubin listener, but like a lot of these people were more dissident voices with larger platforms. I don't know. It was weird to me that they would be given this money to be like, it's a lot of money. And some of those shows weren't pulling in lots of views.
The story was that like he had to create a new YouTube channel, and he was posting videos on this new channel, and they were getting like, 5,000 to 8,000 views.
It was the same channel.
It was.
I think they created a channel, and maybe it streamed to that, but it wasn't his. Yeah. And then the clips remained on his original channel, I think. But like, they were saying that we were told to say certain things. Like, no one ever told me what to say. And like, I helped book that show sometimes. I'm not the booker, but I did help book that show. Like I brought like MIA came on that show, right? And like, it was just a very organic thing. Like, so no one ever said anything about anyone saying, this or that. Some things, but
was the story? I think the story I read was that like he was getting paid like $100,000 to do a video that was getting 8,000 views.
It's insane. I wish I was getting that. That'd be amazing.
Crazy.
It was crazy because that Tenet channel was not getting crazy views.
Right.
I think he was getting the most of all of them.
But like, it seems ineffective if you're the Russians.
Well, I think it was literally just to get the headlines. Because all of a sudden now everyone who hates Tim or Dave Rubin or whoever else is on that network, everyone says it's Russia. And all the comments always, it's Russia, Russia, Russia. And when I say hijack certain things, like to me, it reminded me of how like rap was hijacked by the CIA or like how the modern art movement was hijacked by the CIA, right? When they were trying to go against Russia during the Cold War. So they kept funding like a lot of these like Jackson Pollock perhaps or like Rothko, and be like.
I don't know about any of this.
Like allegedly, the CIA was pumping money to fund these. I don't think the artists knew. I could be wrong. But I don't think the artists knew that they were getting money from the CIA. But they, from what I've heard, were pumping money into it to make this seem like it was more important. Because in Russia, you couldn't express yourself like that. Or like what I was saying earlier with the weird scenes from Laurel Canyon.
Yeah.
They hijacked the counterculture. Allegedly. I think, I don't know if Tom says this in Chaos or if it's in Weird Scenes, but the anti-war movement really started out as like more like button-up dudes with like short haircuts, and then Laurel Canyon that argument with that book would be like, we put in crazy hippies on LSD to discredit that movement. So when I saw the Tenet thing happen, in my opinion, it's like you got all the headlines you wanted to say like
just discredit them. Did they fund anyone else besides Tim?
Oh, there's a whole bunch of people. Tenet was like a network. I don't remember if it was like Dave Rubin.
Oh, Dave Rubin was a part of it too. Yes, I remember that now.
But like, I don't even know how long he was a part of it. But like, there was like 5 or 6 people who were part of like bigger names in like the real like political like podcast world.
It doesn't make sense that if these people are already like having dissident voices in the U.S., why Russia would have the incentive to inject money into that. It doesn't seem like it, and it seems extremely like not cost effective.
Anything is possible. Like Russia has done weird things where they like I think I even heard on one of your recent shows that story where Russia funded both sides of a protest, right? And like, so they got one side to be like, we're gonna go protest on this side of the street, and another side, so like it wasn't organic at all, but Russia was behind the whole thing. So like they do weird things, and like they do try to undermine our society. The whole Yuri Bezmenov thing, like they do try to collapse society through like the voices and the universities and all that stuff. So it's possible. I personally think it was CIA or our own government trying to do it. I don't know, but it was very odd. It was very odd because all of a sudden my boss is in the news under like, I don't know what that was. And now my mind is saying, well, if they're saying we're attached to Russia now, then that allows the government to open up FISA warrants on anyone in that circle.
Oh, really?
Because like, it wasn't the FISA warrants where like it gives you the government the ability to spy on people without a warrant, especially if they're working with a foreign government.
Oh, yes.
So now it's like literally that gives anyone in that orbit, anyone, allows them to do that now. And I assume they were doing it beforehand, honestly. If you know about like the Lockheed Martin satellites that are up there and heat mapping the globe in real time. But it definitely gives that incentive to do that. But like nothing's happened. Like if there was something more pressing and they were actually Russian agents or being funneled Russian information, I would have figured there'd be more to come out. Like that's why the headlines to me that was their goal, was to discredit amongst the people. But it was weird because it was a lot of money to these people and it came out of nowhere. you know, and I know like Tim and them, they're all like friends. They know each other from way back, you know.
Who? Tim and who?
Like Lauren and all of them, like Ruben, like that's like a long, like those guys have known each other for a long time. He
used to work at Vice, didn't he? Way back in the day.
Vice, yeah, I forget the other place. I used to write for Vice as well, but he was like big time Vice. I don't think he started like the political part of Vice, but he was one of the first like people to really do like that on the ground reporting for Vice and stuff. But yeah, dude, I don't know. It was really bizarre. It was very bizarre, the whole thing. And I think I really do think that there's probably something we'll find out about it in terms of the government being behind it. Our government. I don't know. Could be wrong though.
It's so funny how online it's like everybody suspects everybody of being a Fed and working for the Feds and being funded by the Feds.
I mean,
it's like
probably.
I see how stupid it is just in the comments. People think that I'm a Fed.
Oh, we're all Feds. Yeah.
And then like I catch myself being like, that guy's got to be fucking
all the time, dude.
He's got to be Mossad.
But you have to kind of think like that. That's why I started calling.
But you got to catch yourself.
I know you definitely got to be skeptical of your skepticism. But like I started calling the Fed internet theory, because like everyone on the internet, there's dead internet theory, but then there's Fed internet theory, where it's not all bots. A lot of them are Feds. You see a lot of these accounts pop up on Twitter.
Yeah,
like, that person just doesn't seem organic.
Right. Oh yeah, all the time. Weird, all the time.
And I catch myself. I talk to some of these people sometimes. I meet them in real life, and I'm like, you know, interesting. But I know people think about me as well. Like I came out of nowhere. Right? I was on a farm in New York as a professor, and now I'm on like Tim's show, right? And if you say something someone doesn't like, then they're immediately they'll call you whatever, Mossad, Russian. You know, it depends which side they're coming from. And for the people who didn't like Tim, the Russian thing gave them way more ammunition to be like, well, he's full of it. He's been told what to say. You know.
Yeah.
And that does have an effect on some people. Like I think there are some people out there and be like, wow, really? And they don't look into it too much, and they'll be like, wow, was he not believing anything? You know, and you know, because I've seen that happen throughout, like I'm saying, with certain things about rap or Laurel Canyon. Some of these things are just not organic.
No, so they don't fit. None. A lot of the stuff right now doesn't feel organic.
And right now, it's really easy to do that because of the AI stuff, you know, and how people are duped so easily. You know, like I think half of Biden's public appearances were probably deepfakes.
Really?
Dude, he was a corpse, first of all. Like they reanimated a corpse to be president. And then some of those things just didn't feel right. Some of those videos of him are weird.
They are. Yeah, it's always curious to see like how also the government is still using drugs, you know, like because the government obviously tries to weaponize everything they could get their hands on and try to like that's like the most innovation and the most money goes into stuff for war, right? Like technology for war, drugs for war, like during the Cold War and stuff like that.
Big Pharma is part of the military industrial complex. It's part of the media industrial complex. Like you watch TV and like every commercial's for some weird drug. Which is why they're freaking out. I think that RFK says he's going to ban those. And like, if he does, I think that's great. You know, I don't think these corporations should have free speech.
Right.
You know, Clearview AI is a good example of this. People were really upset when Clearview took everyone's faces off the internet. It just scraped the internet of everyone's face to put into their database. And then their CEO at the time was like, our corporation has the ability to do that because of freedom of speech. It's our expression. I'm like, wait, that doesn't extend to you. That was his argument. I think it was like on ABC or CBS, something like that, where he said that. But I don't agree with that. And we're the only country other than New Zealand, I believe, that has these commercials. And they're a joke to me. And I don't think they're safe. Like these drugs are, everyone has like a crazy amount of sides.
Half of the commercial has to list the side effects.
Death, diarrhea.
Occasional pregnancy.
What?
Loss of limbs.
How? But like, they're certainly drugging us. I think it's in our water. It's in the sky. You know, I think it's coming out of they get you in every possible place. Our grocery stores are filled with poison. You know, we're very careful with what we give our kids. Just because like, I wish I was raised that way, but I wasn't, you know. My parents just gave us TV dinners out of a microwave. And I'm halfway okay. I have like a caveman skull and some really problematic thoughts. But like, you know, now that we know this stuff, like we are conscientious about like plastic. And the water we drink. And like the fluoride in the water is an issue. You know, I really do think that. And like, I remember talking to the guy in our town who does the water department. And he was, I forget why he was there. He was there to count like our water to make sure our pipe was working where the city water was coming in. I'm like, I was telling him about like filtering water. He's like, the fluoride's not bad for you. I'm like, all right, like, why do you think that? He's like, well, it's only a little bit. It's only a very small amount. It won't have any effect. And he's the whole cavity spiel, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's good for your teeth, which doesn't make any sense.
Right.
But cool dude. Then he tells me, like, we go on and he tells me, he says, I will be fined by the county if I stop putting fluoride in the water.
Yeah.
And I have to pay like some ridiculous amount for mouthwash for the public schools. I'm like, that's interesting.
Yep.
And then he was like, and then honestly, he's like, I've like tested fluoride in water, and it just like has this insane shelf life. Like, just doesn't go away.
Yeah.
He was like, well, that was weird. I'm like, that's what I'm saying, dude. So they find any way to get this stuff into you. It's like almost nothing is safe because every part of your life has been infiltrated by this stuff. You know? Like, it's coming out of the sky, it's coming in the ground. You just do your best. Like, you're not gonna. I'm not gonna live in a bubble to avoid this stuff. Like, I know that I got plastic all up in this body.
Yeah.
For lots of reasons, and like I'm covered in tattoos, and that's probably also not great.
Right.
So, like, I do my best now, and also teach our kids, the dangers. But sometimes it is funny. Like we try not to eat salmon too much, like, because salmon's like part bug. You ever seen that? Like the bioengineered salmon that
you mean like the farm raised salmon?
Yeah, that they've like it's like bioengineered, and the FDA approved it back in the 90s, and they've got all these salmon farms, bioengineered salmon farms out west that keep breaking out into the wild population.
Oh no, I haven't seen this
for years. So like salmon
break out.
Oh, there's been a ton of like just collapses of the nets, and they're just like, they're part of the real thing now. So like they're procreating with normal wild salmon. So like you don't know what salmon is. Really, but that you can say that for lots of things these days. But we've watched the color of salmon change over years.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Yeah, it's not supposed to be. It's not supposed to be that pink color.
No, it's super weird.
Yeah.
And I used to love salmon, so but we tell our kids this, and sometimes I forget. Like, I tell our 8-year-old that. I don't tell our 4-year-old that. And we were at a party recently, and some dinner thing. They gave out salmon. I was just gonna be respectful. I'm not gonna stop the party and be like, "This is bug."
That person,
But my son does. He's like, "Oh, I don't eat salmon. This is like bug." I'm like, "Oh man, I'm proud, but maybe we gotta teach him not to say it in public all the time."
Yeah.
But I do. There's certain things we talk about that I think it's good for kids to know at an early age, and just be careful, because it is a crazy, depraved world. And everyone's out to get you, but you don't want to make them paranoid.
Yeah, I mean, you can really tell the difference. Like, if we go on like a trip to like Costa Rica or something for a week, and I can eat fucking anything, pizza, burgers, tacos, drink beer, and I feel fucking great. I feel light. And then you come back home and you realize, like, just going to Chipotle, you feel like you just ate a pound of concrete. After
it affects your whole body. It feels super heavy.
The difference is crazy. That you can feel it.
It's gross to me. I really, that's why it's like it's this weird controversial topic these days. We were talking about in the political world about like if food stamps should allow people to buy this poison stuff. My take is no, because it's our money, and I'd rather not poison people. I also don't want my money going to like abortions or
Stinger missiles,
Palantir, or like the people getting killed with the death penalty. Like, I don't want to support anything like that, right? So that falls in line with how I feel, but people just have that option. I'm like, you have the option with your own money. I'd rather not. I also like, it's a hard thing to talk about with people, where like they want to tell companies don't make that stuff. But I'll stop there though, right? Because I'm like, I don't want to really tell the companies what they can and can't do. But it's all like a gray area, because that's in conflict with my idea of the monopolies now, right? And like, what are we going to do with these giant tech companies that are taking over? As I said, like, it's a reflective of what happened with the monopolies with Teddy Roosevelt and the trust busting and all that stuff. So it's like, I don't really agree with it. Someone like Milton Friedman would say, competition is the best way to take care of a monopoly. And I think that's probably the best way, because there's really no taking care of monopolies. Like, Standard Oil was broken up, and they eventually just started like re-emerging, and like they'd be like, okay, ExxonMobil is now back together, and these two are back together. But there's still a network of them. Standard Oil still is not here, but it is here. It's just been fractured, across the country. So it's not as powerful, but it's probably still doing the same things. So I'm just, it's tough. It's just not one right answer, I think, to a lot of this stuff. And the only way to really fix all this stuff.
Sometimes the reaction can be an overreaction. It can be too much. Like, I always worry about that with like the vaccine stuff, right? Because like the COVID vaccines come out now, a lot of people think, and me, I don't know, right? Maybe all vaccines are bad, but maybe not. Maybe that's totally wrong. Maybe a lot of them are really fucking good. I mean, we know fucking ancient people were using like ancient versions of vaccines with antibodies and using that stuff to cure ailments and plague and stuff like this.
I think there was something to those older vaccines. Like not just like those, but like the ones we had when we were kids. But there's also ones like the vaccine schedule is ridiculous. All that's insane. I'm glad we're having that conversation as a society. But the backlash, we could overcompensate into oblivion,
for sure.
Right. So you got to be careful. I've got one of our kids does nothing, right? And she's got the best immune system of all of our kids. Our oldest has a few, and we delayed his schedule because we were at that point, even this is pre-COVID, everything. I was already distrusting my wife more so, right? She was like, we're going to just hold off on a few of these things. It's like, that's a lot to give a kid at once. And I never really thought about it. You know? So I was like, all right, cool. We got kicked out of different practices for not doing all of them at once. And then COVID happened, and it was like a crazy stressful time for obviously everyone. But for me personally, it was like losing the job. Wife was pregnant with our second. We had closed on our first house the day New York State shut down. So I was like experiencing stress to a whole new degree. Like honestly, the pandemic was the least of my problems. Like it was like all this other stuff was crazy. So I go to my doctor who I've been going to for years, and I'm like, hey, like my heart just feels crazy. Like I'm just like stressed. Like what should I do? I'm like, I'm just looking for like, we're going to change your diet. We're going to do this and that. I didn't realize she had gone so unhinged where she was like, the best thing you can do for yourself is take the COVID shot right now. And I was like,
that's what she said.
And she told me like, I made my husband do it. I made my little kids do it. You know, I make my husband mask up at the gym. And I was like, oh wow, I'm surrounded by a crazy person. Like, it happened to be the day that New York lifted the mask ban. They said you didn't have to wear masks in public anymore, which we weren't doing. Like, Nancy and I weren't doing it, but like the hospitals made you do it, and the doctor practice made you do it. And the practice was running around like crazy. They were like, what are we gonna do without masks on? Like they were so scared. So that should have been like an inkling as to what I was getting into. But I was shocked that was her excuse. That was her like thing to me. And I was like, well, she was like, it would alleviate your stress with the pandemic. I'm like, that is literally like the last. I'm like, I just need to know how to deal with stress better. I've always been a stressed out person, but like it was peak stress that time. So that's what, you know, tie all that in with the technocracy and all this stuff, like experts in charge. She's allegedly an expert, but she's lost her mind. So how am I supposed to have any trust in these institutions, you know, when I'm seeing them lose their minds? But like, and then her response is now discrediting real problems, you know, like you do need a vaccine perhaps if you go to some crazy place and they've got something breaking out. But like, I'm more into the old school ones. Than these new like technological like mRNA stuff. That just is too experimental now. So that's gonna be an interesting way to navigate the future too.
And like for my kids, our pediatrician is like, they kicked us out because we said we didn't want to do the vaccines. So like they're like, you can't come here anymore because you're going to put all the other people at risk.
It's crazy.
So and we went around everywhere. We've been looking for like holistic doctors that don't push those things, and they all suck.
Some of them are like
they're all garbage. None of them give a fuck. That's our problem. Not that they're too woo-woo. It's just like they don't fucking pay attention. We really love the fucking lady doctor pediatrician who is pushing the vaccines because she like pays the most attention to the kids. She's like the most affectionate. She like gives them the time of day. But like at the same time, so now we're like to the point where we're just trying to like, oh, we're gonna just delay. We're gonna delay, and like not saying no because like she's the only one who seems to care. But at like the same time, we don't want to, you know, do that fucking full schedule of vaccines all at once with these young kids.
You're seeing a lot of people, like prominent people, like embrace the violence. And so that's going to turn into something way, way too dark. You know, I don't know where that goes, you know? Like, you know, everyone makes fun of Tim for talking about Civil War and stuff.
They make fun of him for it?
Oh, because he says it like every episode.
Oh, does
it's going to be Civil War.
Oh, really? Oh,
because he's always looking, he's looking at like how society has been breaking down and politics has driven this divide between us, and now people are willing to do violence. We saw a lot of that during like the riots in 2020. We saw assassinations. We saw assassination attempps on presidents. And you just look at Mexico. I think they assassinated 23 of their own presidential. You know,
people running for president.
Dude, that's insane.
It's insane.
And that's just right there. You know. So this willingness to violence is really picking up steam, and you're seeing a lot of people like understand violence.
How does he think a civil war will play out in the U.S.?
I think his idea would be like, it's not going to be like everyone's, I think when he says it, people expect it to be like, we're going to march towards each other. It's going to be like Grant, Lincoln. I think he sees like pockets of violence across the country that will be ideological, right? And they'll be, but you know, whatever camps, the left versus right, like that's a vague descriptor these days because they're all fractured. But I think it's like a willingness for political violence. And I also think it'll be, in my opinion, I don't know if he thinks this, but like in my opinion, a lot of it will be bolstered by the government, right? Like you think if you know Northwoods is possible, or at least they thought of it, then I will be skeptical of most things, right? Yeah. And like there was basically a civil war in Italy. You know about the years of lead? So in Italy, I want to say this is like from the 60s to the 80s, there was just insane false flag operations against the opposing political sides, right? And so it was like real things, real violence, bombs, shootings, kidnappings, people died, but a lot of it was done as false flags from like the opposing side, you know, to then what a Northwoods would have done, right? Like we're gonna blow up our own people, shoot our own people to convince them that we have to go to war with Cuba, right? And that was Lemnitzer, right? The guy who brought that idea to Kennedy, and Kennedy fired. And Lemnitzer's next job was NATO. And a lot of people say NATO might have had a hand in the false flag operations during the years of lead in Italy, which are very similar to what he proposed with Northwoods. Wow. So like, you know, I think a lot of things are possible knowing that if we're moving towards violence and the people in charge, I think it's beyond bipartisan. Like it's not just like a right versus left thing. I think there's like a uniparty, for lack of a better word, and they are deeply entrenched, and it's the bureaucratic state that's been there forever, right? That has a lot of power. So with these talking heads, these figureheads, they come and go, right? You get voted in and out, and then you get a book deal or a job at CNN or whatever, or Newsmax, you know? But like these people who are there for so long, they want that power. They want the power over us. They love the stuff like Palantir and Clearview. And, they totally have this idea, the idea of false flags at their disposal. So if we're moving towards some type of sustained violence in this country against one another, like a civil war, but in more fragmented, you know, pockets of the country, like the years of lead in Italy, it does seem like it's possible. And I'm just basing that off what I saw during the 2020 summer riots. You know, you're seeing cities burn. You're seeing politicians donate money to bail out arsonists, like Kamala. You know, like she had people, staff donating money to arsonists to get out of jail. And like, in my opinion, I see a lot of this violence, this terrorism, domestic terrorism, being born out of the universities, like because they're like ideological death camps that produce a lot of mental illness. You know, it sucked being a part of that university, the college world for so long, and you're totally powerless. Like you can do your best. I want to just teach kids things like how to read, you know, how to write, have good skills, but then you're watching professors all around you being like Marxism. So like when I'm saying it's come out of the universities, I'm saying like, this is the line I see in my mind to war now as we see it, or like the pockets of real domestic terrorism during 2020. The Weather Underground, domestic terrorists, Marxists from like the 60s and 70s, they, I don't think they killed a lot of people, but they killed some. I think they killed themselves by accident. They were building bombs and stuff. They were Marxists. They believed in we should destroy this system. And a lot of them became fugitives, and a lot of them went to jail. And then Bill Clinton pardoned, went on his last day in office, straight up domestic terrorist, Susan Rosenberg. And then my old genocidal maniac governor, Cuomo, pardoned Weather Underground person on his last day in office. And you'll see like a bunch of them that were let out. And what did they end up doing? I forget that one guy's name who was pardoned early on with Clinton as well. Bill something. But they all become professors, you know, and they all start to infiltrate the universities. Because that then goes in hand with what Yuri Bezmenov was saying about taking care, you know, how do you ideologically subvert this society? Oh, this country has said you need to go to college. We're going to take that over and totally destroy your brains now and turn you into soldiers for us. So I see a lot of the issues, a lot of the violence, a lot of people, the nihilism being born out of the universities. And then to connect that to the summer of what they call the summer of love, Act Blue was funneling a lot of that money to the organizations on the ground doing the protesting. Act Blue was part of Thousand Currents. Thousand Currents was on the board with Susan Rosenberg. So it's like a domestic terrorist who's been pardoned, working with laundering money to today's domestic terrorists. And they both had, and the BLM, those two women said they were Marxists. So it's like a very clear line in my mind of domestic terrorism and war and against the American people, you know? So don't know how you fight that, because I don't want to censor those ideas. That's some people would say, well, we just get rid of them, exile them.
Yeah.
I don't think that's the way to do it, because evil will always come back.
Yeah.
It's always going to pop back up. It's going to have to teach like the kids how to have a better foundation and how to counter that in there as they grow up.
Yep.
And hopefully not with the surveillance state, but that'll be there too.
Yeah.
Because there's no escaping it. But yeah, I don't know. That's I guess the way Tim would see it in terms of fragmented civil war. I guess I feel like the government's been at war with the American people for decades. I think we've been in like an invisible war, like a war on our reality, a war on our brains.
Yeah.
I think like the technocracy has probably already been in place, in many ways. Like people argued, like I think I said, the FDR was kind of like, that was like a soft technocracy, but like, we started talking about JFK at the beginning of the episode. That's a very symbolic day that he died. Obviously, the day he died is a very symbolic day. But it's interesting in my mind, symbolically, because 2 other people died that day who were also very opposed to the technological state, and that's Aldous Huxley, who wrote Brave New World, who, although he was a eugenicist, Brave New World is kind of like a cautionary tale of this insane world. Yeah. And C.S. Lewis also died that day, same day, and he wrote one of the greatest essays. Yeah, right. He wrote one of the greatest essays on the fears of this technological state, called the The Willing Slaves of the Welfare State. 2 writers I really look up to, but it's just very interesting, that JFK, and I think he was taken out by the military-industrial complex, whatever that is in your mind. So I think like there's been a war on the American people since definitely that day, and outwardly so. Probably started, you could say, you go back to Woodrow Wilson and all this stuff, and say it started then too, for sure. But I think it accelerated that day, and it never stopped. And whatever's happening now is part of this like giant umbrella of war that our government's been waging against us forever. But I'm optimistic. I'm optimistic. I still have.
We're gonna have to move to the Amazon.
Yeah, I might not be safe there either.
Yeah, maybe not.
They're taking over everywhere. They're cutting down the trees. But no, I despite all the darkness in the world, I still have like hope for the future. Yeah, I have hope for the kids, and I don't think it's inescapable, but it's just life moves on no matter what. We'll be fine. They just might read your thoughts.
Right.
So you just have to train yourself better at thinking.
Yeah. Sleep tight.